What is up, guys? It's Brandon the Hardware Bear here, and today we're going to be doing a video on a computer build that I'm building right now. I'm building this computer for a friend of mine. They're wanting to get into PC gaming, so I thought I'd help them out and select a few parts to make that happen. So guys, let me just show you the build list right quick, and then we'll get on with the video. Alright guys, so starting this off, we have our powerhouse of our computer, the GTX 580. This card is 7 years old, so it is one grandpa of a card, but it is still kicking. It does most games 1080p just fine, and I'll show you guys that in a later benchmark video. And I actually got this card for free, so if you guys can pick up a card for free, I strongly recommend you do that, especially a card like this one. Alright, so the processor that I picked for this build is the Intel i3-6100. This is a dual-core processor, but it does have hyper-threading, so it does act like a quad-core. It has 3.7 GHz clock, and it is non-overclockable. This CPU is pretty good for gaming, especially in 1080p, so it will meet our needs just fine. So the RAM I'll be using is the Kingston HyperFury X. It is DDR4 collected 2400 MHz, and it is wonderful RAM, so I'm really glad that I was able to pick this up for the price that I did. The motherboard I'll be using is the MSI H110M Pro VD. This is a pretty decent motherboard, especially for the price. It supports 32 GB of memory and one PCI Express slot for your graphics card. The power supply I'm using is this Corsair CX600. You really only need a 600 watt power supply. It doesn't really matter what brand as long as they're reputable. Alright guys, so I just finished up the computer build, as you just saw. I just realized I haven't test booted it yet, so I'm hoping it works. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so let's go ahead and boot it, see if it turns on, and let's hope it does, because I really don't want to have to take that back apart. As you guys saw, I had a little bit of trouble with some of the components. For some reason, the Intel heat sinks that go onto the CPU are just such a pain in the butt. They really need to... Maybe I just got a bad one or something like that, but if not, then they need to come up with something else, because that is such a pain in the butt to do. But besides that, guys, I mean, everything else worked pretty well. As you saw, I also had a lot of trouble finding the right screws for some reason for my motherboard stands. I had the right ones there, and I tried screwing them in, but they just wouldn't go. And the ones that I actually did end up using were ones from another case that I have. So I don't know what was going on there, but we got it working in the end. So let's go ahead and do the test boot. Hopefully it turns on. Let's do this. All right, guys, so now we're here and ready to go. Everything's plugged in. Let's do our first test boot here. Hope it works. So without further ado, let's give it a try. Okay, so that's not good. Actually, shoot, did I even turn on the power? Nope, I sure didn't. All right, so we're back again. The main problem I just found is that I didn't even turn on the power supply. So I guess I must have just forgot that when I was doing it. So let's give it a try, see if it works. And nothing. Shoot. All right, guys. So one last time here. Power supply wasn't even fully plugged in for some reason. I'm not sure how that even happened. Maybe it's because I was moving the computer around. I'm not sure. But yeah, so let's try it real quick, see if it goes. Oh my goodness. I think I have the power on, right? There we go. Perfect. Let's see if it boots. The monitor, let's turn that on. Make sure that's actually functioning too. Alright, so fingers crossed this works. CPU or memory changed. Please enter the system setup to configure your system. So let's just run the setup, I guess. So I think that means, yeah, so we booted to BIOS. It means everything is working right now. So that's awesome. That's fantastic. So we're good to go on that front. Yeah, so let's just do a build breakdown real quick, and then we can get to the performance benchmarks in another video. Alright, so now that we're done with the build guide, you guys are probably wondering how much I paid for all of this stuff. So now it's time for the build list. So to start off the list, I got the GTX 580. I actually got this card for free on Craigslist. Not even kidding, for free. There was a guy selling two GTX 780 Ti's, and I asked him if he had any of them available still, or if he'd be willing to sell them separately. And he said that he'd sold both of them already, so that kind of sucked because I was going to use 780 Ti's. But he did say he had a GTX 580 laying around. It is an extremely old card, but it was the best of its time, so it's still fantastic. The case that I used is a DIY PC J180BL. I got this on Newegg like 2 years ago for 20 bucks. So I did factor in that cost in there. I put it as $20, so that's not that big of a deal. The motherboard I got about 1 or 2 years ago. I got that for about 40 bucks. The Intel i3-6100 that I used was actually part of a build that I bought off of someone on Craigslist. That was the CPU. I got that, the RAM, as well as the SSD, and all of that was part of one big package deal. I got that for 350 bucks. But the graphics card that I have with that whole deal was an RX 480, and I can sell that for right around 250 bucks. And the motherboard that came with it I can sell for about 100. So I get all of that money back, and so technically everything else was free, but I guess you could factor that into some kind of cost as well. So I guess the total build for this, if you disclude the amount that I didn't have to spend on the GPU or anything else like that, it'd just be 60 bucks, but it is kind of cheating. So I'll give you guys a list of parts that you can actually buy today down below, and show you a couple of those right now. Alright guys, so like I said, here's the build guide. So like I said, I had the GTX 580. Here's one for about 65 bucks, which isn't too bad for this card. You can find this for a lot cheaper on your local classifieds. So guys, I just really want to stress, you do want to check your local classifieds as much as you can. And if you're going for a budget PC, don't ever rush into buying anything, and don't ever buy anything like at MSRP unless you absolutely have to. And you'll see a couple of those parts later on what I'm talking about. Like for example, for this case, cases don't really matter that much, guys. Just try to get as cheap of one as you possibly can. They won't add any additional performance to your rig at all. They may give you a couple of degrees difference depending on the case, but it's really not worth an extra like $50 to $100 to do that. This is a motherboard that I found on eBay. I got it for, it was 36 bucks, which isn't terrible. This board, like I said, I bought it new for about $40 to $50, so that's not too bad here. The processor is about 101. Here's a SSD. Guys, I strongly recommend you not get an SSD if you're trying to save money. Just for example here, this SSD is 75 bucks almost, and this hard drive is 250 gigabytes, and it's only 1750. So you're saving almost a little over 50 bucks to go with this. Well, a little under 50 bucks to go with this. So like that's pretty stellar to do that. So yeah, but besides that, like I said, I would strongly recommend you go with a hard drive if you're trying to save money, because SSDs just really aren't really that worth it right now, unless you pick something up around like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, that kind of thing. So another thing, this is the Kingston RAM that I got in my build. RAM prices are just stupid expensive right now. I'm really not sure why that is, but they're just really off the books insane right now. So this is about as cheap as I could find this RAM, like anywhere, and this is the RAM that I use, and I want to have, you know, the same kind of stuff so you guys can recreate this build if that's what you're wanting to do. As far as the power supply goes, guys, it really doesn't matter what brand you're using as long as it's a reputable brand. This one was 45 bucks, which isn't too bad for 600 watt power supply, and you do need a 600 watt power supply because you have to have the two PCIe 6+2 pins to run the GTX 580. So yeah, guys, there's that. So the total cost for this one would be $448.56. But if you chose to do something like the hard drive instead of the SSD, it'd be around $391.07. The only reason why I went with the SSD in this scenario is because of how cheap I got the SSD for. It came in a big old package, and like I said before, I basically got all that stuff for free because I just turned around and sold the graphics card and the motherboard it came with. So if you're wanting to buy these parts brand new, you will have to pay a little bit more of a premium. The SSD is going to be the same. Power supply is going to be the same. RAM's going to be the same. Obviously, the case is going to be the same. And like I said, just try to get as cheap of a case as possible. It really doesn't matter what case you get, as long as it fits your form factor. And these, obviously, it fits ours because it's ATX and micro ATX, and our board is a micro ATX. So yeah, so here's this. This is what I was saying with the price increase. It's going to be $120 for the processor, which is a lot of money. So you will be paying about 120 bucks for it. And another thing, guys, yeah, so 120 bucks for it. That's $19 an increase. That's quite a bit of money. And another thing, here's a motherboard. It's about 50 bucks. And it's I mean, that's a pretty big jump, honestly. That's quite a bit of money. That's just adding up. And then if you're wanting to get a new card, you obviously can't get the 580 because they don't even make it anymore. And a card with close to the same performance is the GTX 1050. This is one of the cheapest ones I found. GTX 1050, it's not a bad card. Like I said, it performs about the same as the 580, but it does cost quite a bit more. So if you're wanting to get new parts and be able to return them and that kind of thing and don't want to take any risk, you're going to end up spending around $524, and I said like 33 cents here. So you will pay a little bit more for that, the ability to return it and have the confidence of being able to, for everything to work right away, because sometimes you do get some dead parts, and that's kind of a bummer. But yeah, guys, I strongly recommend you look at your local classifieds like Craigslist, even like newspaper ads. I found pretty good stuff there. But yeah, guys, just do that kind of thing and you'll be good to go. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you liked it, feel free to like it. If you didn't, go ahead and dislike it. If you want to hear from me more or see me more, feel free to subscribe, and there'll be more content coming up. I'll do some more videos, obviously, on this computer to show you some benchmarks on it and see how well it performs. But other than that, guys, thank you for watching. Have a good one.